Hello everyone and welcome to another Minecraft Redstone tutorial. In this video we are going to be showcasing the wood farm that I have built up behind me. Now this farm is pretty much my own design. I've kind of taken some inspiration from Rendog over on the Hermitcraft server, but other than just kind of generally understanding what he was doing, I did not copy any designs aside from the TNT duplicator. So to give you a quick rundown of how this works, you let's actually go ahead and just build up some trees. So we have this blast pad down here. This farm works with any kind of sapling. However, or at least I've tested it without all of the overworld saplings. I have not tested it with any of the nether ones. I don't think it'll be a problem. But really this is mostly designed for spruce trees. So let's just build up the 2x2 spruce trees real quick. And one more. So you'll start by putting down some spruce trees, and then you need to come up here and actually dig out or mine out the central column. And then you'll need to get out of here. Since I'm in creative, I can just fly, but if you're in vanilla, you can, or not vanilla, survival, you can just fall down. And then once that is all good to go, you are ready to set it off. So this is, essentially this is going to dupe some TNT up here in this TNT duper, and then it is going to drop it down, and that is timed to explode at the bottom, and then building its way up. Now I have it set to drop 2 TNT per level, essentially, because the first TNT won't always take out all of the logs because of the blast resistance. So you do need to double hit every successive height. And I believe, barring a couple of really tall spruce trees, it should knock out everything. Now there is some loss, but overall, it's pretty lossless. Only other thing I could say as far as modifications concerned, this water pad down here can be expanded. I have just water sources in the 4 corners funneling in, but if you wanted to do a design where you had more of like a trench in the middle, you could actually expand the water pad out quite a bit. It's what, I think 7 or 8 blocks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see. Yeah. So you could just have, you know, a line of water going side to side, and that would give you a much larger water pad, and then the drops that are landing on the side here, and occasionally sometimes something will fall out of the farm, would be caught. But this is just, you know, my first version of this blast pad. This is not essential. Now, as far as dimensions are concerned, in the vertical direction, you need to have quite a bit of space because we need to be able to grow those tall trees. So it is 37 blocks tall. You could make it taller, but 37 just worked for me. It is 24 blocks wide, and it is 34 blocks deep. Now, some of this depth here, this right here, is the logic control. You could probably migrate this around if you're clever with redstone, but you know, I'm quite proud of how I was able to get this relatively compact. You know, I could probably have turned some of this logic and put it over here, but I'm overall pretty proud of it. So let's go ahead and start building, and we're going to go ahead and hop over here, and I'm going to start by building the blast pad. I'm going to give myself some space underneath, and then I'm going to go out 4 blocks, 1, 2, 3, 4, in all 4 cardinal directions. And then I'm going to fill it in. And this is going to be my water platform. Let me just finish filling this in. Okay, and then we need to go 1 block up and just encase this whole thing. Now, because there is water on top of this, it does not necessarily need to be obsidian. I believe it can be just about any block, but I would rather build it out of obsidian. That way I'm sure that it is going to be safe. Now, the next thing we need to do is actually build up quite a bit, 28 blocks, and put this little cross pattern. The purpose behind this cross pattern is to prevent the spruce trees from growing too tall and not getting blasted correctly. Again, you could move this whole thing up a little bit more, but I think we're good here. So I'm going to use some yellow concrete, and I'm going to go up 28 blocks. And I'm going to show you a quick little trick for building this kind of thing in survival. So let me just give myself some extra obsidian. So in survival, whenever you're trying to build something that's a specific height, I'd recommend putting that many blocks in your inventory. Oops, I forgot to switch to survival. There we go. So I need to build this 28 blocks, so I'm going to have 28 blocks in my inventory, and that way when I run out of blocks, I know I'm at the exact right height. And here we go. So now I just need to build the cross such that the central block is over that center. And let me switch back to creative mode. I'm going to leave this here because it's actually going to be useful for testing. We will be blowing it up later. And then we need to go, I believe it's 5 or 6 blocks up to start building our flying machine. So we want 5 blocks. Let me go ahead and clear my inventory. And I'm going to get all of the blocks for the flying machine. They're not flying machine, TNT duper. Sorry, pistons just always make me think of flying machines. And I think that's it. Yeah. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we are going to put a sign right there. So the 6th block up, we're going to have a sign. We're actually going to break that out because there is going to be a regular piston there. So again, we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks up. And I need to make a little water well right here. Let me just encase it. So now when I put a water bucket there, the water will flow and then stop. This is all for TNT alignment. I've had some issues when I did not do this of the TNT actually duping and falling on this block, and then it would fall on top of the tree instead of going all the way down to the bottom. Now, other than that, let me see if I can... Yeah, I can't build this from memory. Okay. So, if we look over there, there is a shape that looks like this. Now, if we were to just build this TNT duper, so it's like an L and an L. If we were to build it as is, it would not work. We actually have to make it self-assemble. So I'm going to take the front half and push it out a block, putting a detector rail down and a minecart. We want a dead coral fan. I mean, it can be alive, but it will die. And then a TNT underneath. Now, when we put a sticky piston there, when we power this piston, it will push out and pull back, assembling the machine. So let's get a button. And boop. There we go. Now, when we press it, it will duplicate the TNT. And you could see there that it kind of landed right here and then the water pushed it down. So other than that, I'm just... crud. I always do that. Oops. So now we get to see me rebuild it. So let's put that there. Sign goes there. So we are going to do an L like that. And an L like that. So many misplaced blocks. My bad. Let's get a coral fan. Put it there. Put our TNT underneath it. Put our detector rail and our minecart. Okay. I just like having these extra obsidian blocks to help, again, with aligning the TNT. And then we just build out a little bit. And we put our sticky piston right there. And now we can test it again with a button. Button goes down, push, retract, and there we go. And we can just keep duping the TNT as much as we want. Now you'll note it is landing all the way in the bottom because I forgot to take out this bottom bit. So this is just where all the items are going to drop through. You can put any sort of item collection system you want there. I would recommend using a water ice road. Okay, let's continue. So let me clear my inventory. I need a regular piston though, because what we ultimately need to control this is we need to hold the TNT at some point. I'm going to be holding it right there in that sign for a certain period of time and then releasing it. Getting the timing right can be very, very stressful. Now I'm going to build everything out using granite and diorite just because it will be easier to count if we have an alternating color. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 blocks out from underneath this piston. This is going to be the line that controls the dispensing or the activation of the TNT. And I forgot to count. And I forgot my number. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. Then we need to go down. Yep, we need to go down at an angle. Every 2 blocks. So we want 2 blocks in between. Yep. Just looking over at my other version to make sure that I'm building it correctly. Naturally, when you're building this yourself, you can build it using any blocks you want. Again, I'm using these in particular because it's easy to count with them. So then we're going to give ourselves a redstone line across here. And I believe we want, yep, our redstone line is going to go down, 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 down. And then we need to go down one more. Yep. And we're going to go out again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we're going to go down and out by 12. So down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We're also going to go down and out again and go all the way back. Okay. So I'm going to do that same thing for these other three, and I'll be right back. Okay, and we are back. So we've got these all set up. On the top, I'm just going to do a solid row of dust until we get to a repeater. I'm going to do the same thing on all 4 of them. And then the bottom row is just going to be straight repeaters. Let me not have that on any delay. Okay, and almost done. And then these. Okay. So now we just need to add in the control mechanism for this. My brain stopped working. This piston. So we're going to go out and do 1 straight row. So let me go ahead and going all the way out and then all the way back. We want to go up 1 because we want to have a torch. Redstone torch right here to keep the block extended. Now we do need to bring this down 1. Oops. Wrong color. That would annoy me. Because we don't want those signals to interfere with each other. Okay. Now the moment of truth, we are going to test it. So let me get a button out. And we're going to test it by putting a button right on the end of each one of these. This is important, not just to test to make sure we did it right, but also to get the timings down. So let me give that a shot. And there we go. So you can see it went all the way through. Now I'm going to build this back down. We want the block to be held here a little bit longer. So we are going to add some delay. I believe having 2 of these repeaters on full delay and then the rest on a single tick is all we need. Perfect. Now, you can probably greatly reduce the number of repeaters. You know, if I get rid of this repeater, I just need to put this on 1 more tick. If I get rid of this repeater, I just need to put this one on 1 more tick. And for every repeater you get rid of, you add 1 more tick of delay. And it should still hit the same spot. So you can do some compaction. You saw we got 1 extra block, but that was just because of the blast resistance of the blocks underneath it. So you can probably condense it down, but we want a total of 4, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 ticks of delay here. And then we need more ticks of delay over here. I just find it easier if I have 2 on full delay and then the rest on just a single tick of delay. And now, for every successive row, we just need to add 1 more that's on full delay. And this should drop it a little bit higher, and it will blast a few more blocks. And then this will be 4 on full delay. And this will be 5 on full delay. That's 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Perfect. So now I blast out some more. It's always nerve-wracking seeing it not quite going. Now, you may need to adjust these delays based on your specific conditions. For instance, if you're building this on a server, that can add some lag, and you might need to adjust these timings. Now, you'll notice I'm not destroying necessarily all of the blocks. That's just one of the things that's never going to happen. You're never going to get full blast up here, at least on the setup I have. If you had another row, then maybe you could, but then the logic gets much more complicated. So I've got this cross here. That way the trees cannot grow too tall. You'll never get a log on this height. You'll probably won't even get a log on this height, so it's not even going to be an issue. You're just going to have leaves there, and those will naturally decay. So now we need to build out the rest of the control. So I'm going to go ahead and pull these out by 1 with a repeater on them. And then I'm going to make myself a platform here that is 2 wide. And let me keep going. And it needs to be 1 beyond each of those repeaters. So it will be 2 by 3 for each of the repeaters. And oops. There we go. This first row will just be solid dust. And then here, immediately opposite the repeater, you're going to put another repeater pointing the other way. And then in every other spot, you're going to have a comparator. And this comparator is going to be pointing in. Okay. Let's get rid of the torch and that. We need some droppers. Croppers, huh? Dropper and hopper. So we want a dropper pointing up for each of these comparators. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to give myself another platform, because it will make life a little bit easier, but these are all temporary blocks. So we want a dropper pointing up in front of each comparator. We also want a dropper pointing into that one, so I'm going to pull out a little bit and have a dropper pointing in. And then on the other side of this dropper, we want a solid block. So I usually find it is easiest. Again, I said this row was entirely temporary, so let me bust it out. I find it easiest to just go ahead and put this row of blocks right here. And then I can easily place my dropper against them. Ooh, there we go. We do not need the block there. Now for hoppers, we want a hopper pointing down and a hopper pointing in. Now, for lag purposes, you're probably going to want to put composters on top of these, but I'm not going to bother here in my redstone testing world. So we want a dropper pointing up, a hopper pointing to the side, a hopper pointing down, and a dropper pointing to the side. We are also going to want a solid block in between those two droppers. So we want a solid block right there. Okay. Now, as far as what we put in here, we are going to be putting an unstackable item. I'd recommend something like a wood shovel, just because it's cheap. But I'm not priming it just yet because I don't want to accidentally set off my TNT system until I'm completely ready. Now, let's go over here and make sure that I'm building everything correctly. Okay, that's what I thought. From this solid block, we're going to want to go down one and over one. And we are going to want a solid row of blocks out here. And we want it to go one past this. Oops, my bad. I went too far out. Or I didn't go out far enough. Sorry, we want one block there for each of them, and then we want to go out one more and do a solid row. And we want to go out one more. And then we're also going to put a block off to the side here. And we need one more block out here. So this row of blocks needs to be one extended out in either direction. And then we're actually going to go out one more over here. This is going to be a comparator. Each one of these blocks pointing off the side is going to be a repeater, including this one. And then we're going to have dust every other spot. Behind this comparator, we are going to want a dropper. It does not matter the direction that this dropper points. Over here, we want another dropper pointing into this one. Down here, we want a dropper pointing up, and then we want a hopper pointing in. Let's see. So this is going to be another, essentially a T flip-flop, where we're going to be sending, or not a T flip-flop, well, kind of a T flip-flop. It's a T flip-flop where it triggers 8 times to get 8 different signal strengths. I want to have that, I believe. Okay. So we are going to want, in front of this dropper here, a solid block. In front of the hopper, we're actually going to want an air block with a torch right there. So let me grab a torch. This torch will lock the hopper and prevent it from sucking items out. I'm then going to go down here, come out one. This is going to be a repeater. And then we need our only 2 observers in this whole thing. And a sticky piston. So we want an... Oh, I didn't actually get the observer. Let me get back over here. So we want an observer pointing into this repeater. So let me just get myself a temporary block. Observer. And we also want an observer right here with a sticky piston pointing into it. This sticky piston will extend, causing a clock which will recycle items up here. We then want to go down one from there and have a repeater on full delay and another block with the repeater. Doesn't really matter too much on that repeater how much delay you've got. Let me just double check that I'm not screwing up. Yep. Okay. Coming down off of this, we also want a repeater on full delay. Now we are just going to... Oh, okay. I'm like, why is this not adding up? Okay. We want 3 dust there. And then we're going to build out 1, 2. We're going to essentially go all the way back over to here. There we go. And we just need some dust to come down. We also want this to come out a block. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because we want a comparator decay clock going on over here. all of them, or none of them should be on subtract mode. And that should be that. Last thing we really have to do is add in the etho hopper clock and add in the button signal. So the etho hopper clock is just, you know, a basic etho hopper clock. Let me get rid of the observer. And I think I've got everything else I need. Yeah. So coming off of this solid block here, we want a repeater pointing in. And we want this to be one of the two positions for the redstone block. We want it to actually be the position that is closest to this side over here, furthest from the farm itself. So I'm going to just build out a quick platform because I cannot seem to get the etho hopper clock built without the platform being fully constructed. So let me put a sticky piston there and a sticky piston there. Dust, dust. Build up. Comparator, comparator. And then we have our two hoppers pointing into each other. Now this only needs about 6 items in it. If you're worried about it going too fast, you can have more items in it and that will slow it down. So essentially you want every 2 cycles to trigger this dispenser. Now we're going to go ahead and put items into this dispenser. Actually, not yet. Not yet. I'm going to go 1 block out here. And where is a torch? Here's a torch. And we're going to put a torch right there. This will pause and freeze the hopper clock in the off position. So it is on when it is here, it is off over there. Now we just need to control this with a comparator. And this is going to be more of your standard T flip-flop. So here we go. So when there's an item back here, that will trigger the hopper clock. So I'm going to go ahead and put an item up there. I'm also going to put a solid block there and a solid block here. This solid block just needs to be powered. Oop, did the wrong type of block. Oops. There we go. With a repeater. Now I just need to kind of track this around. And apparently I'm off by 1, but oh well, doesn't matter. And track that all the way through. Now I just need a button. Would help if I could spell. And I need some shovels. Really, any unstackable item will work here. So I'm going to put the button right here. I need to fill up this dropper completely with my unstackable item. And then into each one of these droppers, into each one of these hoppers, I'm going to put an unstackable item. Let me try to get... Now the item will immediately fall out into that dropper, and that is perfect. And it doesn't matter which of the hoppers you put it in, as long as it ends up in this back hopper. So I'm just going to go through, back dropper. Just going to go through and check here, and I'll be back with you guys in a second when we're ready to test. Okay, so here we are I've got all of the items where they need to go. Now I'm going to kind of explain the logic here. So we start by pressing this button, and that pushes the item in here. This comparator detects it, turns off this torch, starts running the clock. Every few seconds, this block, this redstone block, will get moved back, triggering this dispenser, which will push an item into this dropper. Because they're unstackable items, each individual item will increase the signal strength read by this comparator by a predictable amount. The first item will trigger this comparator, or sorry, this repeater. Second, this repeater. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and ninth. Each time one of these repeaters gets triggered, it puts an item. It takes this wooden shovel here and spits it out here. That signal strength is strong enough to trigger these two repeaters. This repeater will trigger the TNT duper. This repeater will trigger this block, which will actually trigger the two droppers on either side, pushing the item up and immediately recycling it. The very interesting thing, at least the interesting thing to me, is I was really worried about these two signals bleeding across each other. But the item here only gives a signal strength of 2. So 1, 2 triggers that. 1, 2 does not trigger this. So it is perfectly matched with the dimensions back here. Now, when we eventually get up to all 9 items dispensed into this dropper, this will trigger the reset cycle. So this repeater will trigger. This will turn on this decay clock, which will keep this torch turned off, allowing any items in this dropper to flow down into the hopper and over here into this dropper. It will also extend this sticky piston, starting an observer clock, which will just essentially rapid fire all of these items in the dropper up to the top. At the same time, it will trigger this dropper here, which will spit the item back into this dropper, turning off the comparator, turning on the torch, and turning off the hopper clock. So we can go ahead and trigger it. We can see that this torch is off, meaning that the hopper clock is moving. We can watch each 2 times this moves, it increases the signal strength by 1, triggering a successive line. When we eventually get down here, and let me actually move over here so you can see. So that triggered here, but did not trigger over there. And finally, we have the reset cycle, which this turns on, stays on, those all turn on. There's a lot of extra clickings. I could maybe have reduced the timing here. You may also need to adjust some of the timings on some of these repeaters, but for the most part, it seems to work pretty good. Now, the one thing you have to be careful about when running this farm, again, I said that it works best for spruce, but it does work for just about every wood type that I've tried. However, you might not get a nice return on investment as far as the saplings go, so you may need to have, you know, a regular farm for saplings. So this is kind of the pattern that we need to have for the spruce trees. We want 4 4x4s, or 4 2x2s. When you're bone mealing them up, you do need them to be kind of opposites of each other, otherwise they won't work. Now, the thing that I usually end up forgetting... Wait, did that... Okay, that did work. It just looked like it didn't. Now, the thing I usually end up forgetting to do is coming over here and falling down here and punching out all of the leaves in the middle. If you're doing a tree type other than spruce, you might have more than leaves in there. For instance, jungle likes to move off to the side, same with acacia, and same with dark oak. Now, what you can do to help you remember is build this platform out in a direction. I probably wouldn't have chosen that direction. I would choose this direction. And give yourself a water bubble vader up here. That way you can just come down here and fall down, break it all out, fall into your water collection system down here, and eventually get over to the button. So you may want to have the button only accessible by going through that ice waterway. That way you don't accidentally start the farm with some leaves up here, because if you have leaves up here, it's just it won't break the farm, but you're not gonna get nearly as many drops. So let me show you what happens if you forget to do that. So the block will just kind of hang out there and it will blow up here. And that can eventually cause all these items up here to get blown up instead of getting collected. Also, you won't get full collection down at the bottom. So, yeah. Not a great thing to have happen. Not the end of the world. It's not going to destroy your wood farm. Now, every now and then you will get occasional blocks that just don't break, and you may need to go in and break those manually. You can also just trigger the whole system again. That's usually what I do to clean it up. There we go. Now, depending on how well you are actually using it, you may have better or worse rates, but for the most part, not bad. So even with me screwing up, I still got, a stack of logs, and I got 12 spruce saplings, which would be enough to not necessarily do a full batch, but do a partial batch. So I think that's going to do it for this episode, for this video. If you've got any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments area below. Thanks for watching, and I hope this works out for you. Adios.